hour 2, not Tuesday, Monday, hour 2. Wherever you may be and however you may be listening, we're live on iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, and FS1. Joy Taylor is joining us. It is a Monday. I love this segment. Doug Gottlieb just stopped by. Joy, how are you?
I'm great. You saw Avengers this weekend?
Excuse me?
You saw Avengers this weekend?
I saw Avengers this weekend with my son. Saw it Friday after the show. He loved it. It's a little long.
It's long for a superhero movie, yes, but it's excellent. No spoilers, though.
No spoilers.
There are a lot of people that still haven't seen it, if you can believe that, because it's made like a...
Yeah, I couldn't watch Game of Thrones and that. There was too many sorcerers for me. I have a sorcerer.
There's only like one sorcerer in Avengers. And Game of Thrones was excellent last night, by the way.
Fantastic. All right, we do it every Monday. Is that we make a lot of bold predictions. I think it's what makes our show fun. We're not paralyzed by being wrong. Sometimes we are. Colin right, Colin wrong. Let's go.
Where Colin was right.
Well, it must have been a power outage in Milwaukee. I didn't get many tweets from Wisconsin after the Bucks lost the first game of that series. It's the worst Game 1 loss by a number 1 seed since '84. Hey, Milwaukee, you haven't been in the playoffs much for 30 years, so let me tell you how it works. Regular season performance is not an indication of postseason excellence. And this is a team that doesn't have a dominant 2. And it's also a team that doesn't have a lot of experience in the playoffs. And they got outcoached and outplayed badly at home. Giannis was a minus 24. He got dunked on by Jaylen Brown. Now, he's still a great player. I think they win the next game. And they could certainly win this series. But if you listen to Milwaukee fans, they thought they were going to shred the Celtics in 4 or 5 games. This is a long series with 2 excellent coaches. Boston's got, I believe, the better closer. Kyrie Irving is harder to manipulate than Giannis because he can handle the ball, and he's also a great perimeter shooter and a driver. But Boston's defense basically said, we'll take Giannis out. What's your second pitch? And your second pitch, not much to crow about.
Where Colin was wrong.
I've had about enough of Draymond Green. In fact, Steve Kerr was seen this year saying, I'm about done with Draymond Green, but he has been excellent in Game 6 against the Clippers, and he was great yesterday. Against the Clippers in Game 6, he went 16 points, 10 assists, 14 rebounds, and 4 blocks, and was crucial. And yesterday, 14, 9, and 9. Listen, he is not the player consistently he was 2 years ago. But the last game against the Clippers and the first game against the Rockets, he does add a girth dimension, a tough guy, an annoying guy, a physical component to the Warriors that, frankly, they desperately need now that Boogie Cousins is out. And I thought he felt really important against Houston, so I was wrong on that.
Where Colin was right.
Well, Josh Rosen, as predicted, is just too good not to go for a second-round pick. And I thought Miami smartly went and grabbed him. And if he ends up flourishing, heck of a day for Miami. We've also been saying his arrogance is just, you can't draft him. Well, he handled the trade perfectly and graciously, thanking the state, thanking Kyler Murray. Here's a little bit of it.
Cardinals fans, thank you so much for all of the continued support this past year. I know we didn't win as many games as we all would have hoped, but I had an unbelievable time here in the desert. Kyler, I just want to congratulate you and your family on getting drafted. Arizona's a really special place, and you're going to love playing and living here.
Okay, maybe he's just faking it and he's inauthentic, but I got to tell you something. A lot of bad guys all over sports. Show me proof this is some sort of bad kid. There's a lot of projecting here. I'd like some identification, some proof, some video. I thought the kid handled it wonderfully, and I'm happy for Miami because I think Miami just got a free quarterback for 3 years.
Absolutely.
He's not going to cost anything. Arizona's already paid his guaranteed money. It's free.
And for people being cynical about the video, everyone doesn't do a video. And people get trained all the time and don't do videos.
That's
so
right.
Why is this inauthentic?
Where Colin was wrong.
I said the New England Patriots would move up in this draft. Well, they moved up, sideways, down. They moved more than anybody. They had 4 trades Friday. They went down, they went up. They dealt with the Rams a lot. Clearly the Rams, Sean McVay and Belichick have a relationship here. They were the most active team in the draft, but they did not move up. And also they didn't get a tight end. And the tight end was like the second most important part. So they also took a wide receiver, by the way, in round 1. And I have said for years, they don't take wide receivers ever in round 1. So they traded down. They went and got a wide receiver. They didn't get a tight end. Wasn't right on that. Patriots did the opposite of what almost everything I thought they would do.
Where Colin was right.
Well, I said a couple of months ago that it just looked like to me that Kevin Durant was not only the best player in the league, but it kind of pulled away from everybody. He had 35 yesterday, and he didn't shoot a bunch of threes. And in his last 5 games, since he said, I'm Kevin Durant, you know who I am, he's not only averaging 40, he's shooting 91% free throws, 40% three-pointers, and 55% field goal. Most of the great players in the NBA are called volume scorers, meaning they need a bunch of shots. This dude doesn't even need a bunch of shots. This dude doesn't even need threes to get to 35. I want you to listen to the L.A. Clippers after they lost the series. 2 of their better players, Patrick Beverley, Lou Williams, had a great response in trying to defend Kevin Durant.
You know, he's a hell of a player. The shots he took, you know, he made some tough shots. If you was a coach, what'd you tell us to do? Thank you.
We tried everything. So we tried everything. We had several different coverages for KD, and
they didn't work.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, those are great dudes and good players, but he's MJ, he's LeBron in his prime, he's Kobe, he's Bird, he's Magic. Kevin Durant now, he is separated as long as LeBron is out with an injury. Maybe he changes next year, but he's just separated from everybody else. And this is what's happened my entire life watching the league. The best player, when MJ was number 1, and number 2 was like Barkley. And Barkley was great, but he wasn't MJ. Not even close defensively.
Where Colin was wrong.
You know, I thought when Jeannie Buss took over the Lakers and fired her brother Jim, I thought, okay, we're going to get less chaos, a grown-up, we're going to see a game plan. And my knock is, it feels like the same thing that drove me crazy with Jim Buss. It's small, it's the country store. You know, I want to see Whole Foods. I want to see a national chain. I want to see big here. I love the Rambis family. They're wonderful people. But now they're involved in the coaching search, and I don't really understand that, and they don't have a coach. A rival executive told me this weekend, it's like they're becoming kind of seen as like the NBA's most dysfunctional organization. I mean, in Los Angeles, clearly the Clippers now at least have a game plan, really feel like they're completely buttoned up. And I like Jeannie, and I know Jeannie, but I kind of thought there was going to be a different level of accountability and professionalism and kind of on a macro level, a corporatization of the Lakers when Jim left and Jeannie took over. But I just, it feels too family, it feels too small, and I don't like it.
Where Colin was right?
Dave Gettleman of the Giants. He keeps trying to BS us. He said, quote, this weekend, I know 2 teams would have taken Daniel Jones before number 17. Oh, really? So you were sure you had to take Daniel Jones at 6 because you were sure 2 teams were going to take him at 17, even though Denver, sources saying now Denver had no interest in him. This is a guy who knew what Denver was going to do in the draft in Washington, but didn't know this a week ago.
During the season, I had gone to see Dwayne at Ohio State. I'd seen Dwayne play in the Big 12. Is that the Big 12 anymore? I don't even know. The championship game, you know, in Indianapolis.
Okay. So you didn't know Ohio State was in the Big 10, but you knew what teams in the draft were going to do. Stop BSing us. You're over your skis. You're over your head. You're an assistant GM. You shouldn't be running a $5 billion organization. Don't tell me you knew what other NFL teams were going to do, because none of us do. And I mean none of us do. And then tell me you don't know Ohio State's in the Big 10. Guy's over his skis, has been for 2 years. This proves it again.
Where Colin was wrong.
Kawhi Leonard's now 14-0 against the Sixers. I'm not going to really call this series. A lot of people I know like Toronto in this series. They think Philadelphia is too dysfunctional. The baby dinosaurs had a nice weekend. My thing on Kawhi is I think he's a very odd franchise player. He doesn't pass and he doesn't communicate. I think I would struggle with him being my franchise guy. I like talking and passing. But he is a tremendous player, and there are times, a lot of them, he looks like the second best player in the NBA. And I got to tell you, Philadelphia is in trouble here. This is a bad matchup. They just don't have anybody that works against him. And again, he had 45 in game 1. He's 14-0 against the Sixers. He's a really different personality, and he's hard for me to get my hands around. But you can't deny he's fantastic on both ends of the floor.
Where Colin was right?
Well, once Seattle signed Russell Wilson to that massive contract, I said, okay, you better figure out a way to get a bunch of draft picks. Yeah, you don't have any. Seattle turned 4 draft picks on Wednesday into 11 by Saturday. It was a great move and the exact move the Seahawks should make. Listen, once you pay a quarterback over $30 million, you've got to get a bunch of draft picks. Green Bay's done this, and you got to start drafting the other side of the football because you got to get cheap labor because you're spending so much money, so much of your cap space, 12, 15% on one guy that you got to get really inexpensive on other areas. And how do you do that? Get a bunch of draft picks, which allows you to whiff on some. But if you can hit on 50 or 60%, then you solve your financial dilemma. And tip of the cap to John Snyder and Pete Carroll. They went from 4 to 11 draft picks, and they may miss on 5. But they need 6 new players, and that's how you do it.
Where Colin was right?
I have always defended super teams. I don't think people root for the underdog. They say they do, but they don't watch the underdog. And the Avengers movie made $1.2 billion in 3 days. There's not an underdog in that movie. It is the ultimate Golden State Warriors of movies. It's all stars. Nobody wants to watch the Denver Nuggets. Nobody cares outside of that area code in Colorado. The Denver Nuggets. Stars overwhelmingly are good for sports, good for box office, good for ratings. Don't tell me you don't like the Warriors. Golden State and Houston's going to get a bigger number than Denver and Portland and Milwaukee and Boston and Philadelphia, Toronto. The Avengers proved it. When I first started in this business years ago, one of my first takes was, I don't like the underdog. I want Duke to end up in the Final Four every year along with Kentucky, Kansas, and, Syracuse. And the Avengers is the opposite of underdog and the biggest grossing movie ever for 3 days. Coming up next, Mark Schlereth stops by. Denver Broncos, interesting. They picked a quarterback. What does it say? We'll talk about the NFL draft, what it all means, next in The Herd. Folks, you know what's crazy? Only 17% of